please utilize the chat portion. You look at the bottom of your screen. You can click on chat, and staff are assigned. Okay. Yeah, so I've got eyes on the chat that will interject, and David can talk to me some kind of way. We'll get him hooked up, and we are off and running again. Good morning to everyone. Thank God for all of you joining us. This is, of course, our annual leadership conference for 2022. And it is the first part. Y'all know we have two conferences, and so Lord's will, we'll have the second part in June. Want to look at some things. We've got some challenges ahead of us right off the rip, that we are doing the leadership workshop via Zoom link and streaming this morning. Shows you that we are in a completely new season. We are completely virtual. As you can see, I am home in my office, which I can say is quite comfortable, by the way. Lets me do all my work from here. So I thank God for everyone. But here's the challenge that we have. We must learn how to do ministry in this now season in a different way. And so it's the challenge for every leader to re-engage, but re-engaging at the same time with the understanding that we've got to change our modality, which means the model of how we were doing church now has to change, okay? And don't worry, everybody hates change. Everybody hates change. Everybody fears change, but times are a-changing. And so we need to be a part of the change. And Pastor Alfonso Jackson Sr. said something the other day. If we do not catch up with the speed of society that's around us, then we will be left and it's fastly becoming obsolete. And so we've got to push some new things. I know for a lot of you, being on a Zoom call, especially for my seniors, is new, and it's a new reality. But yet here we are, and so we will continue to do classes on how to Zoom. Pastor is getting up to speed on Zoom, because a lot of things are going to happen from our Zoom platform. And eventually we are working fastly where we will be working off of our Google platform. And so the church has switched over. A lot of you can't tell because our addresses, our email addresses are the same, but we are now on a Google platform. Our calendar goes through Google. And a whole heap of other stuff will start going through Google so that you can stay connected with the church. Eventually, we pray that you will be able to go online and even see your personal stuff, your personal contributions, no one else's. And you'd have to put in your code to do that. And eventually you will have Abyssinia app on your phone, which you can access all of Abyssinia. And that's what we're working on. The platform is being constructed right now. Hopefully we'll have the phone app out within the next few days. And we'll ask you to load the phone app. There will be everything from choir rehearsal schedules that you will see on your phone. You can let Minister Kyles know, hey, I'm in, I'm out. He'll know who he has singing on every Sunday, just from folk working on their app, and a lot of other things that we're going to do. So it is pushing us into a new area. And we have to be reminded, we covered it years ago. One of our books for the year, a long time ago, was Who Moved My Cheese? Some of y'all remember that. And I know some of y'all saying we going back to normal. We can't wait till things get back to where they used to be. We can't let me help you. That cheese has been moved out of that room. So we got to go to a new room. So I understand. So here's some new things that will be happening. Soon you will discover that we will have some Sunday school classes on site. And those Sunday school classes will be hybrid. What do you mean hybrid, Pastor? I mean that if you choose and you are in person, you will be in person with your teacher, while at the same time, your class, your teacher, and your material will also be virtual live. And so people who are at home can see students who are in the class, who are present in the class, and all of the material will be on your screen, okay? We're gonna try to get this eventually so that every note, every outline for every class will be uploaded on screen. You can download them and you got the notes in front of you while the teacher is talking. So it's a lot of stuff that's going on. We need you to roll with the punches. Don't complain. You know, senior Pastor Diamond had this whole series for a couple of years called Be Positive, off of his blood type. And so as we are doing the changes, I need you to be positive, all right? All right, and Pastor says that because a lot of things will change and a lot of folk will murmur. I don't like that. I don't like that. Be positive, okay? All right, with that being said, we're going to jump into this. Okay. Okay, yeah, David's already in the chat. So if you have anything, you can pick your chat. He's showing it to you. I want to share my screen now. Let's make sure I get this right. Share your sound. All right, and away we go. All right, this is our leadership. Yeah, we should be out of here before 11 o'clock. Robin, keep us on time. All right, here we go. Getting back to work, build back better as we move from comfort to commitment. And that's going to be a serious push. Back to work, building back better. That's to show you, yeah, I did borrow that. That is the president's theme. But we need to move folk as we're building and rebuilding some stuff, and we're building some new stuff. We got to push folk from comfort to commitment. And so let's look at a couple of things. Here's this wonderful quote Paul found, author unknown, but I love it. Disturb us, O Lord, disturb us. O Lord, when we are too well pleased with ourselves, when our dreams come true only because we have dreamed too little, when we arrive safely only because we sailed too close to the shore, when with the abundance of things, we are losing our thirst for more of God, when in loving time, we have ceased to dream of eternity, when in our desire to build on this earth, we have lost our vision of a new heaven. Disturb us, O Lord. Shake us so we won't be content in being comfortable, that we continue to strive. I remind folk, Dr. Miles Monroe, in his book on potential, states that the greatest threat or killer of potential, catch this, is success. And the moment you think you've arrived, the moment you think you've accomplished, the moment you think you can rest on your laurels, is the moment that potential goes unfulfilled. And so we got to push on. For many people, the motion or action of attending church was interrupted by the coronavirus outbreak. Now the inertia of staying at home is keeping many at home, even though church and churches have reopened their doors for in-person services. As such, Abyssinia's leadership team has been forced to address the following 5 critical questions as we aim to build back better. 5 critical questions. Question number 1, how do we build ministries for this present age? And what does that look like moving forward? How do we build ministries for this present age? And what does that look like moving forward? I just got through telling you about some changes that you will see with your Sunday school classes going hybrid. Now I need you to stretch your mind and ask, how do I do my ministry? Watch this, not only in person, but in a virtual world. So that I need to start looking at, be it if I am a deacon over districts, how does district and staying in touch with my district, keeping my district engaged and involved, how does that look now in this present situation? Because watch this, we aren't having district meetings on second Sunday anymore. So now deacons, district presidents, and district members, how do we meet? How do we accomplish tasks? How do we greet new members and get them engrafted into our district and into the ministry? How do we do that where we are not seeing each other? Okay, that's a question you got to start asking, whatever ministry you're in. First of all, how do I pull my ministry together? It starts with communication. I can tell you that much. You got to talk to your folk. You got to talk to your members. And watch this, you got to get together. There are so many prayer lines that we ought to be on. I'm so proud of my ministers. They have a prayer line that they're on consistently. I've got a couple more prayer lines that I'm doing. Your district, your ministry ought to be praying, ought to at least have that much where we're getting up every day or every evening and we're praying and we're talking, we are addressing concerns and lifting them up. That's just one idea. I need you all to think and push the envelope. Number 2, how do we lead our congregation and continue the fellowship of believers? And watch this, I don't care what you say, fellowship is important. Yeah, the fellowship, koinonia, those who are called out, how do we fellowship? How do we communicate? Because if we aren't fellowshipping, then folk are falling off the ship. And so I need you to figure out, how do we fellowship? I was just on a Zoom call Sunday evening, and I thought it was a little crazy because we were all on while the game was on. And 104 pastors from Florida General on the Zoom call. And part of the issue is, how do we fellowship? And we're not meeting in person. And a lot of things that we discussed on Sunday, a lot of things that we need here. You got to stay in contact. You got to have these groups we talked about on last year. I'll tell you about that more. But look at that. I need you to think about that. Number 3, how do we get members to come back to church? Lord have mercy. Because this bed ministry is something else. And we need ministers to come back. Not ministers, we need members to come back to church. And so how do we get them back to church? And we'll look at answering some of that. Number 4, how do we conduct meetings in hybrid form, virtual and in person? That's hybrid is virtual and in person. How can I start conducting meetings that blend both? And how do I determine when I need to do that? Okay. Some of the leaders on the phone, on the conference call today, on this Zoom, will tell you that, listen, we do trustee and deacon meetings virtually on Zoom. And I discovered, instead of having folk rushing from their jobs or rushing home and then trying to rush to the church because I got to be at a trustee meeting or I got to be at a deacon's meeting, we can do it easier from the comfort of home with Zoom. Now watch this. I have to go and upgrade some equipment. And I'll be the first. I didn't have a camera. Matter of fact, I was using the summer camp's computer, laptop. And I come on and it would say summer camp's laptop because that was the laptop that had the camera on it. And I was using that until finally I said, listen, I got to go and get a professional camera. So I went and got a completely HD camera. I have a serious microphone here on my desk so that I could do Bible study. I could do Zoom meetings from home, okay? So some of you leaders need to look at, how do I invest? You don't always have to go get a new computer, but some of you must go get you a camera. You can go in the Best Buy and say, hey, I need a camera so I can do Zoom conferences. They will give you a camera that plugs into the back of your computer. It's an easy hit. You just follow the direction. They give you microphones. Some of us have headsets that we put on so that we can conduct meetings, all right? You can't say, I ain't gonna buy none of that, I ain't gonna buy any of that. And understand that you got to come out the box, got to do some new stuff. And in order to do that, sometimes you have to buy new equipment. And our pastor had to do it himself. Number 5, how do we hold members accountable based on defined parameters of virtual worship services? How do we hold members accountable based on defined parameters of virtual worship service? We're going to define those in a minute, and then we'll discuss later how do we engage with our members. And let's push. Reason some folk may not come back to church. We got to look at it, and so it won't become the 800-pound gorilla in the room. Some folks ain't coming back. Number 1, they got out of the habit. Yeah. Church attendance wasn't a habit. Yes, David. Dave, did I get you? Did I lose you? I thought you kicked in on me.
Oh, I think that was somebody else that came off.
Okay. Yeah, church members got out of the habit. We had a carved out time on Sunday morning. We would get up, get dressed, come to church. And I can tell you it was a routine, because watch this here. A routine when people arrived at church and came to church. Some people came early, some people came late, but it was their routine. And so we got out of the habit. The momentum of weekly attendance have given way to the inertia of staying at home. Woo, child, I done got so used to this virtual. Woo, Nah, y'all got it. I ain't coming. I'm just gonna sit at home and do church.
Mhm.
That is a serious, issue. And yeah, so we need to look at that. Also, they decided that church could be watched at a later time. Some members have developed the mindset that church can be watched at a later and more convenient time. That really suggests that church has been replaced with other options. That now I get up and go to brunch. I go to the movies. I do grocery shopping. I got a whole routine of other stuff that I done did that has actually filled in where I used to go to church weekly. And I tell myself, because it's streamed, I can catch worship at any time. And so not only am I not coming back, but I'm one of them ones who will pick it up and I'll look at it later. Okay. Here's the danger in that, is that you have not carved out a time to worship, which means, watch this, if I'm saying that I'm going to do it at any time when I get back, when I can fit God into my schedule, I'll get to him. And because you have not carved out a time, then watch this, worship is no longer a priority. It's whenever I'm available. If I'm available, I'll catch a piece of it. Okay. And just sending in your tithes, we bless you. I thank you for sending in your tithes. But if that's all you're doing and you're not watching, you're not worshiping. Okay. And so I'll come back to that. Some folk ain't coming back to church because truthfully, they haven't missed it. Some people didn't feel connected to the church or the people in it, even when they were attending regularly. So they haven't experienced the sense of loss or the desire to gather again that many of us have felt so deeply. I ain't missed it. Many have simply replaced the church attendance with other interests, like watching church online and just sleeping in. Yeah, it ain't no big deal. Yeah, some folk will half coming anyhow. So now, wow, ain't no big deal. Not only that, this break has given them the excuse they were waiting for. Not everyone who's been attending church has been contributing to it or getting something from it. Some have simply just been enduring it. I'm just here because, hey, my mama them here, my wife wanted to come, or my husband wanted to come. I'm just here. And now that, ooh, child, oh no, I ain't going. You catch COVID up in church. And I keep telling you all, it seems like the only place the vaccine ain't working is at church, because everybody else who's vaccinated, they go everywhere and do everything they want to. But then when it's church, oh, I got to protect my family and myself. And that's strange, because if you've been at the game where folks screaming and shouting without masks, and you sitting there screaming and shouting with them, yeah, please don't use that excuse that I'm protecting my family. We have done painstaking measures to make sure that you could be safe at church. That's the vaccine, that's the mask wearing, that's the screening, the questions, the temperature check, all of the sanitizing stations. That's we pay to have the church sanitized after every meeting. They fog it, they spray it, they wipe it down. And so for you to use that as an excuse when you are doing everything else, yeah. So that's major. And I understand some folk, I would come to church, but I ain't vaccinated. I would come to church, but I ain't vaccinated. The truth of the matter is, A whole heap of y'all ain't vaccinated because you just don't want. You don't want to come to church. You like using that rule, so you don't have to do things. And you basically bouncing it as an excuse. And push. We haven't given them a compelling reason to show up in person. Online church has come of age during this crisis. Everybody's online now. This will lead a few people to ask, if online church is working, why should I show up? Listen, I'm getting everything from online. Why y'all want me there? I don't have to waste my gas. I don't have to do none of that there. I can just do it from home. And I'm gonna show you some things today that will help answer that. All right, and show you why sometimes it's better to be in person. Aim of the workshop. And here's what we want to do today. Examine the spirit or disease of apathy. Examine 7 ways to encourage or motivate leaders and members to attend church, and examine the parameters of a virtual and sacred worship experience. Okay, so let's get to it. Apathy defined. Y'all, apathy is a disease caused by being overwhelmed with all the stresses and struggles in life, even in ministry, to the point of shrugging our shoulders and giving up, but still going through the motions. Or it is the lack of willingness to move forward in our spiritual transformation and even discouraging others to do so. It sounds like burnout. And I've heard folks say, I got church burnout. And I've asked those folks, okay, what you doing that you burned out in church? It wasn't that you got burned out serving. You weren't doing, man, we were out witnessing last week. We out feeding this week. We out doing something else next week. No, you weren't doing any of that, but you're calling it burnout. No, it ain't burnout. That ain't burnout. If you haven't been doing anything in service, then it's not burnout. It's apathy, where you just don't feel like doing anything anymore. And that spirit to serve, that spirit to grow, that desire to please God is fading from your life. And a lot of times we mislabel it and we call it burnout. Oh, child, I'm burned out. Ooh, I'm tired. I'm tired. And they ain't get anything. You haven't been out to visit anybody. No mission work. You aren't coming to Bible study. You aren't even showing up online half the time. And you're calling it burnout. That is not burnout. That is a spirit of apathy. And you got to identify it. And you have to understand, because watch this, folk won't change if they don't know what they got. That's apathy. And so if you're thinking it's burnout, because burnout says you need to push back a little bit, you need to cut back on what you're doing, you need to rest before you recharge and then re-engage. But if you aren't doing anything, that's not burnout, that's apathy. And so if it's apathy, then you got to push yourself to get out of it, okay? Apathy versus enthusiasm. Apathy is the opposite of God's call on the Christian life and destroys passion and devotion, which eventually results in a lack of enthusiasm to follow Christ. Did you catch that? My passion for ministry is gone. My devotion to stay devoted to my calling, devoted to my worship, devoted to my study, devoted to my service. Yeah, that's gone too. All right. And so we're not following Christ as closely as we used to be. As leaders, if we are not helping or a part of a solution to encourage members to stay committed to Christ, then we are most likely in apathy. Child, I was gonna call them, but they ain't gonna do nothing. These people don't want to do nothing. They tired. They don't feel like being bothered. And you already gave them an excuse before you tried. It's your apathy that you have projected onto them. And I've done that. I've been guilty of that. I confess that now. I've been guilty of that. I look at moderator, and I had some blunt conversations with Pastor Guns, and I said, man, oh, just don't feel like doing this. And people don't want to be in association. And a lot of stuff I've said, I projected onto other folk. Apathy. Okay. Let's look at enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is the key to stay focused. Enthusiasm is interest and passion working together with a goal. It enables one to overcome disappointments and setbacks while remaining positive and optimistic. Enthusiasm. Hey, we called this meeting. We're trying to get folks so we can get this thing back off the ground. We can get this ministry going again and running on all cylinders. We called, I reached out to everybody, didn't but 4 folks show up. I mean, nope, I ain't giving up. Hey, that's a good sign because last month, nobody was showing up. I've got folk, we're gonna keep pushing till we get everybody in and get new people going. That's enthusiasm. Because yeah, there are some setbacks, also major setbacks. Listen, but let me show you how enthused I am and how enthused I was. Almost for a whole year, I preached to nobody but a camera. And you know, I'm just preaching. Woo! Wish somebody will say something. Woo! Then I'm blessed. We brought in the praise team halfway through that year, and the praise team would sit over and after they opened up, they listened to me preach, and I had some amens finally. Ooh, God, I was feeling good about that. But still, watch this, no one in front of me. And so I'm trying to be spirited. I'm saying stuff like, good morning, Abyssinia, welcome, welcome. It's another day. And most of you didn't even know it was Thursday night. We were recording. And I'm feeling in the back of my mind, but I got to push through. And so watch this. When we reopened and we started having leaders come in, I did deacons and their wives and ministers, and I had some people in the audience on Sunday. I was literally hyperventilating because I got so excited. After preaching to just pews and a camera to see some people, I wasn't interested if the building was full. I wasn't interested if people were in the balcony. I wasn't interested about the crowd. Just, man, to have 5 folk. I had to contain my excitement. Had to pace myself. I was getting winded on the first point because I was just excited that I had somebody to preach to. It's celebrating now and resetting. You learn how to celebrate the smallest of things. You restart your ministry, you bring them together for the first time since COVID, and you ain't got but 4 people. Child, that's worth jumping for. Yes. And so we start again with baby steps and we celebrate every step. We start again collecting the low-hanging fruit and get excited and celebrate about it. Somebody joining, somebody getting saved. Wow, that was exciting. To see communion, wow, exciting. To have somebody to baptize, whoo, yeah, hadn't done it in over a year. Exciting. And I can't concentrate, you know, man, we used to take in 200 people a year. Now, man, we glad to see that I get a letter from somebody saying they're watching and they gave their life to Jesus, or an email saying, preacher, me and my family, we like what we see. We coming when we can. Yeah. Listen, I've learned how to celebrate low-hanging fruit because I've seen no hanging fruit. And you got to learn how to get excited again about ministry. Don't let numbers dampen you. If you got 1, that's enough. And that's enough to celebrate. Enthusiasm is the fuel that empowers the Christian testimony and the spark that inspires the passion that we do our best for God, even in the midst of a pandemic. Okay? Pushing on. Okay, got you. Thank you, Dave. 7 ways to encourage leaders and members. Motivating leaders and members to attend church again with the goal of achieving greater involvement and engagement. Here's how we're gonna go about it. Number 1, we're gonna pray for them. If there's ever been a season that the church needs to pray, it's now. Let me help you. Let me help you. The chronicler was right when he chronicled God's response to Solomon at the dedication of the temple. And he says, listen, things are good, but do know there are some days ahead that's going to be, okay, like a pandemic. And things are going to go to hell in a handbasket. Folk going to start dropping from disease and pestilence. And he says, so here's the answer. If my people who are called by my name would humble themselves and pray. Now is the time to pray. Seek God's face, turn from our wicked ways. God says, then listen, I'll hear from heaven, I'll heal your COVID-stricken land. I'll forgive your sins, and I'll heal your land. Listen, he says all of that, but it starts with prayer. So prayer is key. We got to get people back to praying. We got that. That's why I'm asking every ministry, if you don't have a prayer line and a prayer call going in your ministry, you need to develop one and get one quick. Where you get me, say, well, everybody ain't gonna get, everybody can't get on it. Everybody can't. My ministers pray 5 times a week, and pastor's good if he makes 2 or 3 times a month. And I tell them, listen, don't depend on me to be on the prayer line. You all pray, all right? Because I got some weird sleeping hours, and most of the time I'm going to bed till 3 o'clock in the morning. So don't worry about me. Y'all pray and stay faithful with it. And they are. And so my other prayer things that I do at 7 and stuff, yeah, I do those. But you got to start it. So whatever your ministry is, if you dance, if you're youth, whatever your ministry is, say, hey, here's a good prayer time that works. Let's get some. Everybody ain't gonna make it, but some will. And with the ones who will, start praying and watch God start working. Okay. Number 2, please don't guilt anybody. Don't guilt them. Ooh, child, you don't want to pray? That's what's wrong. Y'all don't pray. You should. How many times you praying? You don't pray? You don't want to get on the phone and pray? I don't know. You might not be safe. Don't guilt anybody into being on your prayer line. Don't guilt anybody about you ain't been to church, you ain't put your foot in the church yet. And you vaccinated, and you should have been. You don't guilt anybody. Got to learn how to encourage people back, and don't give them a guilt trip. Okay. Number 3, offer them an experience they can't get online. And I'm gonna talk about that in a second, because there's something different with live in person than there is virtual, and I'll talk about that. Reach out to them. Every Sunday, y'all hear me say, okay, invite people. You have folk on social media, stream it, post it, post service from your phone. Go online on your social media on Facebook and go to Abyssinia And it's gonna come up, it's gonna ask you to share. You hit share, then hit the post button, and it sends it, it puts it on your link, and so people can see it. More people see it, more people come worship. Text folks, say, hey, we on. You ought to, ooh, you need this word. Oh, child, I'm being blessed. You need to come. You have to encourage folk by reaching out to them. Okay? All right? You just can't call a meeting anymore and everybody coming. You got to call, you got to text, you got to remind folk. Then you got to call them when it started. You got to text them when it started. All of that, you got to keep doing that to remind folk to reach out to them. Okay? Number 5, apologize. Apologize is needed. Let me help you. We have pastors meeting, and boy, it got heated in the meeting. When we met for board meeting here in St. Augustine, it got heated. And one of the pastors stood up and he said, listen here, y'all won't even let people in the door who ain't paid their monies for registration, ain't paid their fees. They can't even get in this meeting. He says, and I received notices about paying for my church, about paying my stuff to the convention. He said, I'm quite bothered that y'all sent me notices about paying, but none of y'all called to ask me how I was doing. He said, I was in a depression. He said, and it seemed like y'all didn't give a damn. And as leadership had to apologize. Hey, we're sorry. And sometimes you have to do that. Yeah, you ain't heard from us. Yeah, we didn't visit, we slacked. Even pastor has to do that. So sometimes it's just a simple apology to people. Okay, say, hey, please. And I tell you quick, charge it to my head, not to my heart. I wasn't trying not to serve you. I wasn't trying to ignore you. Just got tied up, got busy. But here it is. I'm trying now. And apologize. It goes a long way. Number 6, help them draw closer to Jesus right where they are. Got to walk with folk, because you don't know where a person is in life, and understand where they are. Pray for folk, hey, what's going on? Because watch this. There are folk who are reeling from the hurt of losing loved ones in this season. And before you call them, where you been? Why you ain't came back? Why you won't come back? Are you kidding me? I'm having trouble holding it together because now I'm sleeping in a bed by myself. I keep cooking too much because my spouse ain't here, and I'm trying to adjust. I'm trying to keep this thing in the road, hold it in the water. Ain't that I ain't thinking about church, but right now, this thing is heavy for what I'm going through. And so it ain't a time for you to push me. It's a time for you to come alongside of. I need you to be that para, to come alongside of para and aid. That's where we get the word paraclete from, okay, to aid us. And then verse 7 says, give them the opportunity to serve others. Part of the things we got to do so folk can get back in the stream as we're feeding, as we're doing our mission, as we get back to doing our stuff, where I've got to have phone captains, where I've got to have folk who are reaching out and scheduling our meetings for districts and whatever else. I have to involve folk, because look at here, now is not the time to start trying to micromanage everything. Give folk an opportunity to get involved and to serve. Okay? And so, hey, I need a person to do this. Hey, I need a person to do that. And folk will appreciate you for it. Okay, the biggest challenge, here it is. How do we offer them an experience they can't get online? You trying to get folk back in church? Number one thing, I'm good. I can see y'all online. I'm fine. I ain't got to come back. Okay, so how do we let them know it's something different in the house than there is outside of the house? The biggest challenge for every church right now is offering the best online church service while making the in-person experience so compelling that everyone who watches will want to show up in person. There are some things, y'all, that don't translate as great online as it is in person. And so you need to understand there's a difference between in-person worship and online virtual worship. Here it is. There's an explosive element that does not translate completely to members who are watching online. For example, being at a concert will bring you a totally different experience than watching a concert online. There's an entire energy shift from being present. Let me help you. For those of you who've seen concerts on television versus being in the arena at the concert, especially being down in front, it's a whole nother vibe. Whole nother vibe. I don't know too many people. If you offer them, say, hey, I got Super Bowl tickets on the 50-yard line, or would you like to sit at home and watch it? Most folk will take the doggone tickets because it's a whole new experience to be present. Well, the same thing happens here. When you are in church, it's a whole nother vibe. Whole nother vibe. Because you are involved in what we call corporate worship. With corporate worship, child, it's a feeling. When the Spirit is moving, listen, it becomes phenomenal, unexplainable. And watch this, and if you're watching it online, you could miss it. You could miss it. There are some things that, hey, it can, as we love to say, it can break loose at any moment. And if you're not here, you miss that experience. We are time stricken as we are online, and we're trying to watch our time. It's 2 Sundays ago, I gave the benediction. We went off. If you were watching online, you got our standard closing. We thank you for worshiping at Abyssinia in person, and we give you our final announcements, da, 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 da. Meanwhile, back in the sanctuary, listen, the praise team, band, and everybody else who's standing there, we went in. It got crazy happy in there. Meanwhile, y'all, you watching that, you missed all of that. You missed all it. Hey, that went on for a while. Yeah. And folk who are home watching had no idea. No idea. Literally, when I left the sanctuary and got out to the foyer, I could still hear folks screaming and worshiping on the inside. It's one of those things I have to say, you had to be there. We worship corporately more freely. We stand, we shout, we clap our hands, we engage easily when it's corporate. When you're watching at home, there's a challenge on how much worship you're going to do. It is also easier to worship in person than it is to worship online. For example, how many of us can truly say that we are fully engaged in praise and worship when we attend service via the virtual setting? You know, I dare argue, how many folks stand up while they're home watching online? Yeah, so you can start seeing some of the difference. in-person versus online. There is an intangible part where the movement of God's Spirit occurs from the assembly of believers participating in corporate worship that does not occur via an individual watching a virtual service. There is a different and easier experience to encounter God's presence at worship, which most likely will not be achieved by watching a streaming service. And I'll show you how you can help to do that, but it's harder, and I'll show you in a minute. Reigniting our relationship and family with Christ. It's a corporate worship. It's a family worship, where we all came into the church house. We all came and we worshiped. It's a more focused and sacred worship experience. Because watch this, there are certain things you can and cannot do in the sanctuary. Yeah. While at home, yeah. Virtual and sacred worship experience. 3 critical elements that must exist for true worship to occur in a virtual setting. So I want to help you, for those who are worshiping at home, that there's some things that are missing that I need to help you see. There's your disposition, your preparation, and your space. Example, 60 to 90 minutes of Zoom meeting with your CEO of your job. Using this example, we can look at our disposition, preparation, and space. All right. So here we go.
Up our sick and our shut in to you, Lord. We lift up those that are grieving because loved ones have gone.
So in order not to repeat the failures of another country's history, God shows Ezekiel and us that we must first have a reliable watchman on the wall. Amen. And say to them, when I bring the sword against the land, and the people of the land choose one of their men and make him their watchman, and he sees the sword coming against the land.
There has to be a proper disposition before worship. We showed you an example there of how worship can occur virtually. Watch this. Notice that he come apart, separated himself from the cares and concerns of the house and everything else that was going on in the world, and totally focused. He's got his pad for his notes. He's there. He's got his attention. And he joined in the worship. Watch this. Our disposition has to be a disposition of sacrifice. We must be willing to sacrifice our comfort and our laissez-faire attitude. Church was never designed to be convenient. So I needed to say that church is not convenient. So what do you mean, preacher? Church happens, worship happens at 10 o'clock. The danger of virtual worship is that brunch starts at 11. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drive on my way to Copeland's to go do brunch. And if I'm driving on my way to Copeland's, oh, by the way, I'm gonna listen to church. No. Now you're doing two things. If you're going to be in worship, then you've got to be willing to make some sacrifices, starting with your time. That here is a sacred time, a sacred space on my agenda that I will not let the world intrude on, that I will not cheat on, that I will give God my undivided attention in worship. No, God shouldn't be on my time. I should make it a scheduled time to be in worship. Say, child, I get to sleep in. You know, if I was going to church, I have to get up and I have to get ready. Child, I can sleep in and catch it when I get up, and I catch it later. Let me help you. You're going to start missing it. Because after Sunday, I'm clipping this. And so when church ends, whatever time around 11:20, 11:30, it's off. And if you go looking for Abyssinia worship, you won't find it, not for this Sunday, you won't find it until 6 o'clock when it re-airs at a scheduled time. Because somewhere we got to be disciplined to give God a sacred time, not any time. Did you catch that? It is not when I get free. Church starts when I like for you to tell your boss, listen, I'll get to work when I wake up. When I feel like coming by there, I'll start. And your boss will tell you, well, you won't start on this job. Because at this job, it starts at this time. And you got to be here at this time. And so you have to discipline yourself. You got to make sacrifice so that you can watch this. It doesn't have to be convenient. It has to be set. So I am giving up. I am letting go of my outside wants so that I can be in service. That's a disposition of sacrifice. Has to be scheduled. I have to have a scheduled time to be with God in worship. Then watch this. I got to be committed to the duration of the worship experience. Before virtual, let me help you. We have church, and because I'm facing, and my ministers can tell you because they face the audience also. Listen, they're people who got to walk. As soon as I start preaching, I got to get up. I got to get up. And I watch groups of folk go to the bathroom together. And groups of folk go sit out in the hallway. That same spirit that likes to tell you, oh, okay, let's move now. Let's go out with it now. Is the spirit that wants to keep you from hearing the word.
Yep.
The devil gets real active right before the word comes. And if that was happening in church, imagine what's happening at home. Because at home, now you're doing everything. Ooh, let me go get them shoes out the truck. Child, I ain't checked the mailbox. I'm gonna go check the mail. Everything you can think of will drive you out of worship. You must have a mindset that is willing to participate in praise and worship instead of just sitting and watching praise and worship. You've got to have a disposition for worship and not for watching a show or a broadcast. Okay? So that's the disposition. So now let me help you. Here's what you should not do.
And to be understood that it's his punishment. But not only is it his punishment, you need to understand it's his punishment, but it's also you had a second chance not to keep doing what she had told you to stop doing. But we know, yeah, I like my house. Don't stay in the house. Take it outside. We go outside for a minute, but don't hide it. Come back in. And knowing that we shouldn't be most way in the house, we started up again. We start real good. And then she'll give us our second warning, but you need to understand, along with the second warning, she calls for the safety of the city. When trouble was on the horizon, I dare say that one of the reasons why we as a race of black babies being born to single black men, the tragic truth is that there are far too many brothers in the text. We are in danger of losing everything that we've accomplished because we've got brothers who aren't on board.
Did you catch it? There's the difference. Because just because you have it on doesn't make you a worshiper. And if you are one of those folk, and watch this, most folk are, that I've got it on, plus I'm doing my other stuff. I'm grilling and I'm in service. You ain't worshiping. You are treating service like you would treat a show. And some of y'all treat service worse than how you would treat your favorite show. Because if it was Housewives or something else, you wouldn't move until the commercial told you to move. That is not worship. If you laying down in your bed, that's not worship. You wouldn't get on a Zoom call with your boss, with your manager, with your CEO while you laying down in your pajamas. Please don't tell me you give your boss more respect than you give your God. If we are talking about entering into God's presence, coming before his throne, then you got to ask the question, if I'm inviting God in to come before his throne, am I inviting him in, watch this, to a prepared place where I am prepared to meet him and prepared to have an encounter, or am I inviting him to watch me do what I do? How are you coming before God? If God's on the other side of the camera, looking at you, what you doing? Because some of y'all eating full meals. Some of y'all watching TV and the broadcast. And if you're doing that, you are not worshiping. You're watching, half watching at that, but you sure not worshiping. The catch, y'all, is this. It is harder to worship at home than it is in God's house. Because at home, you are competing with more distractions. Bible says we can come boldly before his throne. But please note, coming boldly doesn't mean coming raggedy. Since when did we stop giving God our best? I mean, God ain't even worth you getting up and brushing your teeth. God's not worth you getting out of bed. I mean, you would do that for somebody else on a Zoom call. We treat child, God, no, I ain't gonna put my wig on. I'm just gonna come in here with it. Yeah, he know, and you don't make no preparation to come before him. There's no prayer, there's no meditation. It's here I am. I ain't really here, you here, but I'm doing other things. Listen, there is a preparation that must be made. In order for there to be an encounter, there must be an exchange, y'all. The exchange comes from what we give or offer God when we enter his presence in this virtual setting. Y'all know I'm a Star Wars fan, and I almost had David to put this scene on there, but I decided not to. In Star Wars, they use holograms. It's more like what we see now when you do phone calls with folk and you FaceTime them. But imagine doing it without the phone and the hologram of the person who's talking to you. And in the hologram, most of the time when they're looking at the dark side of the force, you get the emperor, and the emperor is in the hologram. You see the emperor and he's talking to you, and whoever the emperor is talking to gives the emperor utmost respect. There's one scene in Star Wars where Darth Vader is on the hologram. He's talking to the captains of the Star Destroyers, and he's telling them something, and one captain gets a little flippant at the mouth and says something to Darth Vader, and even though he ain't there, it's his hologram he's talking to. He says something, and Darth Vader does his hand like that and catches him, literally choking him. He ain't there, but he's choking him from long distance, lifting him up off his feet and choked him to death. And when he let him go, he dropped dead on the floor. And then he promoted the person behind him, the captain. So you understand? Yes, sir, I understand. Imagine if God started getting our attention like that. He could get you out the kitchen. That there ought to be some level of respect to come before, watch this, God who is all powerful. Your heart beats because it's his will. You breathe, you move, you have your being because it's his will. And before you come to him so cavalier and so careless, you ought to remind yourself that, hey, I better straighten up because I'm in front of him. Not only is my disposition, not only is there my preparation, but then there is my space. You've heard me say this before, create your sacred space. You've got to create a sacred space. Create a sacred space so that God will have your undivided attention. This means removing any and all distractions. Turn this phone off. Turn that TV off. So I'm in worship. And when I'm in worship, I give God my undivided attention. Disconnect all your social media except the platform you're looking at and you're having virtual worship on during worship service. I'm not on YouTube on the screen, on television, while I'm surfing Instagram and looking at reels and TikTok videos. I'm not cleaning up, sweeping, and cooking, but I'm being engaged while I'm worshiping. And watch this, and I'll tell you more about it tomorrow in the sermon, Lord's will. If you are silently worshiping God, then ask yourself, are you worshiping? I'm at church, you ain't saying nothing. The Bible declares that we make a joyful noise. Bible declares that let the redeemed of the Lord say so. That when you're coming into God's presence, how dare you come into God's presence and you don't speak to him? You don't glorify him. Well, I'm just watching. Exactly. You're watching, you're not worshiping. For a lot of folk, virtual, your excuse for virtual fits because you didn't feel like worshiping God in the first place. If you're going to be a worshiper, then it's totally different. You worshiping God. You praying. You are asking God. You are praising God. All of that comes through your expressions. You sit through a service and you sit there and you haven't engaged with God, you will never have an encounter with him. Just watching. We've gotten so cavalier now that, watch this. Oh, I'm at brunch and I got my phone on. I got the volume down. I'm watching y'all though. And old pastor, I paid my tithe. You ain't worship. You just watched. And you half did that. Let me wrap it up so I can get to some questions. Doing good. Conclusion. Online worship should never be a substitute or fallback plan for laziness. And we should be willing to offer God the same level of respect as we would the CEO of an organization. Online worship should not be this fallback choice. If you're one of the folk who like to say, I don't feel like getting up, don't feel like getting dressed, don't feel like going to church, don't feel like going in and doing all that, I'm just going to watch it online. What you literally said is, I'm not willing to sacrifice anything for God. Got to be a sacrifice. It has to be a sacrifice. Yeah. Do you know what we do when we're doing other things that we love doing? We get up early. We go to bed early. We make sacrifices. We carve out. We block time. We get up. We travel. We get to where we're supposed to be. Why? Because this is what we want to do. If I'm willing to make sorority and fraternity meetings in person, but I ain't willing to come to church, I got to check my priorities. I'm having a discussion with my mom, and she's watching, so she's gonna be laughing, and then she'll tell me about it later. I said, Mom, you got to get up. And I said, and take 3 days a week, go to the mall. And I said, you go to the mall, you can do your shopping, but while you're there, start at one end of the mall, make sure you get all the way to the other end of the mall, and then go back. I said, you got benches you can sit on, you got food court, you can stop and eat. And I said, you can go into any store you want to go into and do your touchy-feely thing that you like to do. My mom told me the other day, she said, I do most of my shopping online. I say, I wasn't really sending you to the mall to shop. I'm sending you to the mall so you can get exercise. You can get out. You start at one end of the mall, you work your way down. While you're there, you can do some shopping. I said, but the main thing that's happening that I want to see is I want to see you stay mobile. I want to see you still going out. I want to see you spending time away from the house some, so that I know you're getting some exercise in, you're using it so you don't lose it. True, you can shop online and get everything you want. But it's something else about going to the mall that's going to be beneficial for you. I've discovered going to the mall sometimes, or going to the store, sometimes beat shopping online. I bought some shoes on Amazon the other day. And my deacon then told me, man, you go get these shoes, they look wonderful. I went on there, I got me a pair, I ordered it, I wear 10 and a half. And as soon as I took it out the box, I reminded myself, my feet are not normal size, I need wide. And I put the shoe on and I walked all day. And matter of fact, I didn't wait to get back to the house. I took them off in the car. And I came back to the house, I put them in the closet because they hurt the top of my feet. And I told myself, see, if you had gone to the store, tried them on, you'd have left them in the store. Because I don't buy anything that's gonna hurt me if it ain't gonna help. So there's something you get that you're not gonna get if you just did everything online. I want to suggest that, folks. Just because you can, don't mean you should always do it. For people who had been exiled, for people who had to travel for miles around to get to Jerusalem, to get to the temple, the psalmist sung their song when he said, I was glad when they said unto me, let us go into the house of the Lord. There ought to be something that stirs you, that make you want to get up, make you want to put on, get dressed, so you can come and worship God. Listen, as leaders, we must lead, catch this, by example, not by pointing, but by doing. So let's worship. It starts with us worshiping. The greatest challenge to this new age we are in is the challenge to keep folk wanting to have that encounter with God. Please do not replace Christ with comfort and convenience. So that you can experience God. And watch this, so that you can re-engage. Because we are re-engaging with everything else in the country. Football back, they let you in the stadium now. Basketball, you're back in the stadium now. Malls, restaurants, you're back in. And folk are engaging back. The only place folk won't keep closed or act like it's closed, church. That's the ploy of the devil. The good news is that God has blessed us so that we can get his message out beyond the sacred walls of the sanctuary. That folk who never knew Christ will come to know him in a real way without stepping in a church. They've heard it virtually. The good news is that now we've become more accessible to a world that did not know Christ. That's good. Bad news is there are some of us who are acting like, I'm one of the new people, I'll catch it online and get just a little bit more. Here's the thing I discovered. Anything that's great, you got a desire to see it, to be it, to experience it in person. Haven't made it to a Super Bowl yet, but it's a part of me that wants to experience one. I watched the new stadium in Las Vegas. Man, it looks gorgeous. It's a part of me that wants to be there. I want to see something from it. For all of those Cowboy fans who take trips and watch this, pay money to tour that stadium. Claire, I wouldn't pay a dime. But for y'all who love it so, because you diehard Cowboy fans, everybody want to get to Jerry's World, stand on the star, walk in the locker rooms, see the pictures of favorite players of your, everybody lives for that experience. And that's cool. And folk make that trip. When they go to Dallas, they try to get out there to get to that stadium. That's cool. But I wouldn't want a stadium more than I want God's sanctuary. To be in his presence. Bible talks about working while it is day. Being active and being present in worship, in ministry, while it is day. Because we are reminded that night will fall, that a night will come and the night season where we can no longer do work, where we can no longer gather. There's going to be a time when, be it from age, be it from sickness, be it from whatever, when we can't make it back to the sanctuary. And I declare, while you are able, you ought to make it your duty to worship God and have an encounter with him. So what's next? We got to identify and define a plan to connect with the community. How does that look? Our connection, as we used to go and knock on doors and do all that. How does it look now with this new generation? How can we do it virtually, hybridly, and in person? We've got to establish hybrid approach for Sunday school. The folk who are coming to class can be in class. Folk who can't come can still get it online and all share in a classroom experience, not just for Sunday school, but for Bible study. I've told you the app is almost finished where you can have this on your phone and be more engaged with the church. And we're coming up with new ways of how to do stuff. So at this time, I'm going to open the floor because I've done enough monologue for now. All right. Question and answer time. I am, now asking for questions. I got you. I don't see any in message. Questions, comments, concerns, leaders?
Pastor, on a comment, Elsie's going to print some copy of the presentation out for those on site. They can get a copy tomorrow.
Amen. Anybody?
Pastor, I'd just like to say that I've not been in the sanctuary since the last Sunday in October. And you are absolutely right. There is a big difference in watching virtually or worshiping virtually and being in the sanctuary to worship with other believers. It just makes a difference. Even though I always, first I couldn't get up, but since I've been able to get up, I always get up, get dressed, as you say, make my sacred space and get ready for the worship experience. And that makes a difference than laying in the bed, because for a while, that's all I could do. But it's still not like coming into the sanctuary to worship. So I just encourage everybody who can come to come, because I couldn't come, I missed it so much. And I'm just thankful that, God willing, tomorrow morning, I will be able to come into the sanctuary once again.
Bless you, Haney. We miss you, my baby.
I miss y'all so much.
You've been in our prayers. We're so glad your voice back.
Yes, thank you,
I was going to start calling you Froggy. But thank God, battling COVID twice, and God has been good, and we thank God for you. I tell folk, I got an experience. I messed around and bought a new bed. I fuss at myself about the bed I got. I bought it. John Anderson told me, said, Pastor, you need a bed that you're going to be comfortable in. And however much that costs, you do it. And so, yeah, it costs. I got a bed. It's adjustable, Helen. I can do zero gravity. I can raise my legs all with a push of a button. I can sit up in the bed. It massages. It does all of the wonderful things. And I can literally position myself with raising the bed and watching TV. And I did that, and I've done it a couple times, but I don't watch TV from the bed anymore. And when my mother asked me why, I say, because when I was in the hospital and after the surgery, and I couldn't get out of bed, I got that, because hospital beds adjust and you can raise it up. And I was raised up to watch TV in the hospital. And then I had to push the button, get somebody to come help me get to the restroom. And there's that feeling that when I'm in bed, that it reminds me of that hospital feel. And I'm sitting up and I'm watching TV, and I can't enjoy a movie like that. Matter of fact, I don't. I get up and go either out front or go sit in the theater and watch a movie. But I don't want to do that. There was a time when I watched worship from a hospital bed because I couldn't get out. And I wouldn't dare watch worship from my bed now. Because when I couldn't get out, I was asking the Lord, please help me get back to church. Please get me out of this bed. Please let me stand again, Lord. And now that he's blessed me, healed me, I'd be crazy to get back in the bed and say, God, this is how I want to worship going on. Oh, the devil is a lie. I want to be in the house of the Lord, where I can shout and tell him thank you, and without my back on the bed. Now, there's some folk, they are bed stricken, and this is the best they can do. But for folk who can do way better, shame on you. And I wouldn't let God fix it, so I had to be in the bed to watch it. Okay? So think on those things. Any other questions, comments?
Yes, Pastor, we have a question from Sister Wanda Crowley. She wanted to know, did you address bringing children's church back in the children's choir?
Yes, we are. I didn't address it here. We are coming back with our children's church. We are in need of a children's church director, and so we're working on that. Also, I was trying to get young Sister Hughes to come on back and do that. Yeah, we're working on that too. So I have not forgotten that, because one of the primary things that I understand with parents is that they need a place for their kids to go and worship and to learn, while they can give undivided attention to worshiping God. And so, matter of fact, I had Pastor John Jenkins of First Baptist Glen Arden in Maryland did a workshop for our pastors in the association, and that's what determined their return. He said, we won't return back to the sanctuary until I have a place for kids. And so that is our primary objective. That's priority. Me and Minister Allen and staff are working on getting set up so we can do kids. I am well aware of vaccination rules. And so we were waiting till they drop the age. They have, I believe it's 5 and up now, can get vaccinated. And so we can do that. And you say, well, Pastor, even you want the children to be, listen, if you were working in the children's church, you would want them to be vaccinated too, wouldn't you? Yeah, because that means you have to work around them. So we're trying to work some things out. And as soon as possible, we will. Matter of fact, we're working to not only get them back, but we are working to be virtual for children. So I'm trying to get that fixed so that literally, if you had your children in one room watching, because we need 2 platforms then, watching children's church while you in the other room worshiping in regular service. So we're working on some things so we can do children's church and figure out how we can offer it in a hybrid or virtual fashion. So yes, ma'am.
Hey, Pastor.
Yes, sir.
Somebody reached out to me for a question, with the question. Virtual worship has been going on way before the pandemic. Will we be embracing the fact that people may just want to worship virtually?
It has allowed us to widen our border. I can say that now. We honestly have members everywhere, and we got members even outside of the country. And so we've embraced that. But at the same time, I have to be that watchman on the wall who keeps sounding the alarm that we cannot get comfortable and convenient. That when we are able to be in the sanctuary, we be. Virtual became great because we couldn't be. But watch this, when we can be, we need to be. Because I feel we owe that much to God. And if I didn't feel like I feel now about this cavalier attitude with worship, yeah, we missing it. And I feel that we going down the wrong road and to keep us from going down the wrong road virtually, I've got to promote in person, and I've got to also help to teach how virtual worship should look and be, so that folk can worship and not fool themselves into thinking that I'm worshiping when at best you're doing is watching. And so that part we've got to address. A lot of folk are virtual, but a lot of folk watch this are not worshiping. And so, yeah, I'm trying to do both, but I've got to put the pressure back on folk to make sacrifices to be in worship. Any other questions? Any next
Pastor,
question? Yes.
Pastor.
Pastor, I have a question.
Go ahead, Brother Willie.
Have we, and I'm not sure if this goes against what you're saying, please correct me if it does, but have we looked at the option of creating like small groups for those members who are not able to make it to the sanctuary, like still being able to give them the worship experience of being around other members, creating a system of small groups where they can come together and worship together in their virtual space, but still being together?
Our small group works through Bible study, and every Sunday school class is a small group, and we're trying to work out how to make small groups hybrid, starting first at the church. So I think we got 5 online, coming online soon, Paul?
I got three commitments.
Okay,
We're looking at the first Sunday and starting the first Sunday in March.
Okay, so we got 3 coming online. As we bring more folk online, I'm also going to start letting some folk, we're looking at some satellite options, because what we've discovered by presenting hybrid, we run out of space, because unlike in those of us who are used to Sunday school, y'all know how many classes sat in the sanctuary. Well, that becomes a little almost impossible to have everybody with a camera, a computer in the sanctuary teaching at the same time, in people's classes being hybrid, so folk in the sanctuary with you and folk at home can hear and enjoy the lesson. So that's more difficult. So we literally have to create spaces to do it. And Brother Willie, the answer to your question is we will have some. We are putting together, and we got teachers teaching from home now, which is off campus, but we want to get more people hybrid on campus, and we got some more options we're looking at.
And also, Pastor, one of the things, that's a challenge is, well, I don't want to say a challenge, but with the hybrid, what becomes important with it is a lot of Sunday school classes have picked up people who are not members of Abyssinia or who are members elsewhere, but they are sitting in some of our Sunday school classes. So we've made that connection. And so that's one reason why we want to keep hybrid, because if we don't, then we'll lose those people who have been visiting those Sunday school. But also, Pastor, question came to me, would you say a person is less connected to Christ if they're virtual?
I won't say you're less connected to Christ, because you can still be connected. However, the challenge when you're virtual is, are you having encounters with God in worship? And because when we are by ourselves and we are worshiping God and we're not in corporate worship, and you would think it's almost the opposite, that now I'm by myself and ain't nobody watching how I shout or watching how I worship. I'm more free to worship. But what I discovered, people by themselves, child, I was in here, I looked like I'm in here raising my hand and shouting. So now I'm back to being more, it runs the other way. So you got to put yourself in your space where you know that, listen, I have come to have an encounter with God. So it doesn't make you less connected, but it does give you a challenge to stay as connected and to grow closer. Good question.
Pastor, we had a hand raised from, and I'm sorry, y'all. I'm looking and I'm trying to see pictures of videos. The person's identity on here is iPhone 3121. Did you have a question?
Somebody got your hand up?
She did, but it looked like she might have went out and came back. I don't know if she.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else? Questions?
Pastor, there's something in the comment log, in the chat. When the weather permits, how about some outdoor setup under tents? I'm not.
Yeah, we will revisit that. For those who asked that question, Pastor, why haven't we been back out? You know, we did the Park and Praise. I think that was the summer of 2020. Somewhere in the summer of 2020, we tried it. We thought we had it. We had the tent with the stage. People were in their cars. We thought we had that thing, and we were going to do that almost I had set it up so we could do it once a month, and folk could come on first Sunday and we could have it. And the very first outdoor service we had the largest spread of COVID in the church.
Oh, wow.
And so after having to send the praise team to be tested, and half of the deacons to be tested along with their wives, and having to send all of the media staff to be tested, all of the church staff and the summer camp staff. Yeah. And we picked the bill up on a whole heap of that because people were paying to get, we were paying the testing company to do rapid tests at that time in 2020. And so, yeah, because it became such a large exposure, that took the taste out of my mouth to try it again. We will look back at it and do it. I think we just got to do it safer. We had one who was asymptomatic and was working, and folk were helping him set up, and it jumped like wildfire. So that sort of dissuaded us from that. But we will look at how to come back and see how we can do that better, safer. It sure won't be when any numbers are up. So that those who aren't immunized can come to worship. We will look at that, but I got to figure out how do we do it safer. Yeah. Great question. Anybody else?
Hey, Pastor, just as a note for the children, I'm a registered nurse, so within probably the next 2 months, children from 6 months to 5, the vaccine will possibly be available for them. So science has really been working really hard to get the children vaccinated. And so that'll be another big push, not just for children's church, but just for the well-being of our children, because Delta variant and the Omicron variant really hit the younger population, our children, and our elderly.
Yeah, I've been made aware by parents who kids are home and have had to spend a week home with their children who had gotten infected. It seemed like at one point we had quite a few parents home with their kids that let us know it was running through the schools. Another concern of ours with coming back with Children's Church. So now that a lot of kids are getting vaccinated, hopefully that will curve and we can get a chance to do that. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
Pastor, you were saying something about getting back into the community. How do we go about doing that? Would we just drop off flyers or something in the neighborhood, just to let them know that we're still here, we still care about them, and we're interested? How would we go about doing that?
Well, a couple of things that we've been challenged with doing, and some of this we've been forced to go back to some old school things. We're gonna do some snail mail and start sending postcards to the community. And so we've got to put that, make sure that's one of our items that we budget to do that. And at the same time, as we're coming back, not virtually, in person to do our canvassing, we're asking folk that, yeah, it's all vaccinated. Everybody's vaccinated, everybody's masked up. And, we're really trying to present safe circumstances if we go back in the community, understanding that some folk are still distancing themselves and not talking. So it presents a challenge, but we've got to go back and do. And so we're gonna have to do some more practicing. When you come, you'll see a workshop on the do's and don'ts for our street evangelism and witnessing that we used to do. We probably gonna all end up with fanny packs and hand sanitizer and all kind of stuff, but we do have to tackle that challenge. And it won't be when there is a increase in spread. We won't look at that until these numbers go way down. But yeah, we got to do that. Just like we did with our clothing giveaway and with the food giveaway, it's masked up and distance. We changed stuff. We had folk come and we put it in the trunk. Just trying to keep some measures of safety involved. So we got some challenges, Madeline, but we're trying to figure them out and see how we can do what we need to do. Anyone else? Concerns, comments? So how does this look with your ministry in particular? As choirs will start rehearsing, how does that look? We got some different looks for that. Minister Cowles will help the choir and how to start coming back together and which choirs are coming first. We're doing it in pieces as we slow walk it back, trying to get everyone in. Brother Sparrow. Eric.
Hey, Pastor, sorry, it took me a second to switch back over to the screen. We had a question on the Facebook Live platform.
Okay.
Go back over. Switching through all of these screens. Good morning, I can't find my vaccination proof, or I can't find my card as proof that I'm vaccinated. How can I get around this so I can attend church?
That information is provided by Department of Health, and some physicians have already been able to download it, so they can see their physician or they can contact the Department of Health for a replacement card. But that information is, if you have a portal that's online with your physician, that information is automatically downloaded to them for Department of Health. If not, you can contact the Department of Health directly for replacement card.
Thank you, because I had absolutely no idea for that answer. So
No worries. And if they have
Yeah.
if they have
Thank
any
you, sir.
questions, let me know.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say, Pastor. I was on mute. I didn't realize it, but yeah, you can go straight to the Department of Health and get that, as Veland said.
Okay, thank you all.
Yes, I just got mine. It's right off on the corner of University and Beach, where
Yeah,
the old WIC building was. I went in. It takes every bit of less than 5 minutes. You're in and out, and they'll give you a card.
That is correct. If they have questions, just let us know. We'll help them get that.
okay. Deaconess Barnes, I see you. What you got?
Hey, and also for those that are on the north side, we are doing them at Clanzell Brown. You can actually go in and get a duplicate of it, so you don't have to travel that far for those that are on the north side.
Okay, thank you. Great questions. Any other questions? Comments, concerns?
Oh, and I wanted to say, Pastor, because we are still live streaming to Facebook and YouTube. It may take like a minute or so before it translates over to those platforms. Okay.
Okay. So I'll give them a minute.
Pastor, go ahead.
Yes, go ahead.
I have a question for you. I noticed that we're now, of course, we require one shot, the first vaccine. Will we transition to fully vaccinated for in-person worship services and events, or will we keep it at one shot? Is there any plan?
I foresee us going to fully vaccinated. Hopefully, if numbers stay up. If numbers come down and it looks like we're sort of good, then I am weighing the option of folk who are not vaccinated being able to come back to church. But we have to see. That's a numbers game. And so, yeah. And so that folk will understand, there is a team here at Abyssinia, a back to worship team that consists of medical professionals. Pastor does not make these decisions. I do refer to them, and they are the ones who inform us, from Sister Sandra Jones and the others who own that team. So that's, yeah. I always ask, can we do this? Can we do that? But they are the ones who make those decisions. So here's what I am. Here's where I am. Here's where I am. And I'll say this as we're wrapping up. I am so convicted of us being too casual with worship. I really am. And here's the thing that troubles me with being casual in worship is that we have two sacred ordinances. For all of my deacons, they know where I'm headed. One is baptism and the other is communion. And let me help you. It was just a few years ago, so it ain't been too long ago, where you couldn't get communion unless it was handed to you by the deacons. Even in the sanctuary, they had to pass the tray. They didn't hand the tray off. They literally wouldn't let anybody hold the tray. Here's what's troubling me, is that we start making things so convenient until the things that are sacred become no longer sacred. There's one ordinance that God takes so seriously that it actually comes with some warnings of death. That if you are taking communion and you're taking it with malice or hatred in your heart for someone, the Bible warns you that you can be eating and drinking unto death. We have made communion convenient, and in making it convenient, I'm afraid we've made it common. And if we make it common, I'm afraid we run more risk of displeasing God with communion than honoring him with it. And so with that being said, I've already discussed this with my deacons. I am suggesting that after tomorrow, which is first Sunday in February, when we get the first Sunday in March, we will end virtual worship before we do communion. And communion will be in person only. Which means, since I've already discussed it with the deacons, that for all of our sick and our shut-in who cannot make it to the sanctuary, they will have to start back their visits, be it to nursing homes and to the homes of our sick and our shut-in, where they will once again administer communion personally to those members who are homebound. I hear you asking the question already, what about us who don't come to church? Will they come to our house? No, they will not. If you can come to church, then come and receive communion. As often as you can, you ought to do this in remembrance to me. It is not guaranteed that you have to do it every month. It was one point where we did communion every Sunday. You ought to be in communion, but communion ought to merit the sacredness that it was involved to have, which means that we shouldn't be as cavalier to put it in the hands of everybody to do it. Because I just feel like, and I've heard folks say it, and I've even watched folk comment, got my crackers and juice, I'm hitting it, I'm hitting it, I'm hitting it. I put some food on my cracker. When we get to doing that, I think we have missed God. And I'd rather keep you safe than have you eating and drinking damnation to yourself. So that's my decision. I know it won't be a popular one. And I know some folk will be frustrated and angry. Yeah. But that's where I'm at. It is now 11 o'clock. Any final comments or questions before we wrap up? Or concerns? And I know I got to allow a minute to pass before I can make sure no one who's on the other platforms have raised an issue or asked a question.
And Pastor, my question is, when we start the first Sunday in March and we want everybody back in communion, will that include unvaccinated people as well?
Right now, no. If the numbers don't drop severely and drastically, then unvaccinated will still not be able to come. Yeah, I know that's going to put some people at a disadvantage. But
So Pastor, for those people who's unvaccinated that can't come, what is your, and we probably haven't thought about it because it didn't hit me until he posed the question to Travis, just that, what's the thought behind them in communion then?
That was my question. Those within compromised immune systems who can't get the vaccine, are we going to do a drive-through communion or something? Or are we looking, what are the plans for that?
we can. We can set that up, and I can make that a drive-through thing. I will stay, and along with the deacons, after we dismiss everybody, and I can definitely do it in the parking lot.
It was just a suggestion. I know some having compromised immune systems and they can't get the vaccine, so they do count on virtual, communion to participate. And they're not in nursing homes. And if you're not doing home visits, of course, then that could be an option.
Okay. So that can be the option, that on first Sundays after church, pastor and the deacons will stay afterwards, and we do 12:45 or 1 o'clock, and we can do it with drive up. Yeah. Now I can't make that sacrifice for those. But I just got to change some of this convenience. And as in always, when we're trying to adjust and to do things in a better manner, it will always affect some folk adversely who we were not targeting. For those folk who are unable to get vaccinated, I definitely am not trying to make your life more difficult. But I am trying to push people to treat communion more sacred, and forgive us if we sort of take back control of it. Questions, comments, concerns?
Pastor, I left you a message in your chat, just a reminder for tomorrow's attire.
Oh yeah, tomorrow's attire, is our usual black and white people. So thank you. Okay, thank you. Please be in mind, we've got the homegoing service of Sister Mary Proctor at 2 o'clock as we are celebrating her life, 101 years old. We're celebrating a long, wonderful life that God has granted her, tremendous overtime. And so we're coming to support the family and celebrate with them. Also, please keep in prayer our chairman of our deacons, Deacon Lonnie Johnson, whose brother passed this week. And we want to keep him lifted up and the family. And Brother Robert Thomas, Sister Wynn's son, is having his homegoing today at Open Arms, which starts at 12. Pastor's gonna try to throw on something and head that way in a second. So please keep the Cobb and Thomas family, all of them in your prayers also. Okay. I think I've said it all. Robin, I know I'm 5 minutes, so thank you for giving me the 5-minute extension. Where are we? Okay, if there are no other questions, comments, or concerns, I want to thank all of you for your time and your participation. Please forgive us for the hiccup of the cap. We will make sure that we have removed all caps by the time we redo this again in June, and we can have even more people present. Please spread the word. You can receive a copy. You can get a copy of this tomorrow if you're in person, and we should have it on the website shortly where you can download this presentation. I want to thank you again. Please don't forget, after tomorrow, Sunday services will air at 10 o'clock and at 6 o'clock on Sundays, 10 o'clock and at 6 o'clock. So if you do the normal, where I'll just catch Abyssinia at noon after I finish brunch, we will not be available for you to pull us down. You can pull down last week's, the previous Sunday service, but on Sunday, 10 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and then at midnight, we'll post it so anybody can see it at any time after midnight. I'm intentionally trying to get us to carve out time to make our time essential and purposeful for worship. And if I not being convenient for your schedule, then I'm asking you to get more committed to a time for worship. Okay, so thank you very much. The benediction. Now may the grace of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, the love of God, the communion of his Holy Spirit, may it rest, rule, and abide on each and every one of us for this physical year as we give leadership to God's people. We thank him for the opportunity for leadership and ask his blessings on us as he makes us a blessing for those that we guide. May he keep us until we meet again. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. God bless, and I'll see you tomorrow in worship. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yes, Pastor, you did push it a little, but you did very well.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you too. See you tomorrow.
I love y'all. Thank y'all.
Love you too. God bless.
Bye, everyone.
Bye bye, everyone.
Bye.